dun, 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 my retard meds. I just take my retard meds and I'm ready for CG Woo-Woo. Hail Comicsgate, welcome to CG Woo-Woo. I am your host, John XD. This is where we discuss the outre, the Fortean, the weird, the CG adjacent, the Fandom Menace adjacent, and whatever the fuck I decide is cool. I am going to be talking about a lot of events that the YouTube algoritmo does not take a shining to, so I'm going to be using a lot of code language. So bear with me, and if you're in the know about a lot of this stuff, you won't have a problem knowing what I'm talking about. I'm going to be taking a lot from Jay Dyer. I'm going to be taking a lot from Thomas Sheridan as far as the code words go. So if you're hip to what the term needlecraft is, it's a little more friendly to skirt around the algoritmo than, say, the jab. But anyway, I think any of you who are in the know what I'm talking about. So the first weird Fortean thing has to do with the huge bombshell that happened earlier this week with a certain person named, what was his name? Torden Drishton. But anyway, he was hooking up on a grinder date at a seafood restaurant, and he ended up getting sandbagged big time because he dropped some huge bombs regarding the needlecraft. And in fact, he freaked out so bad. And if you ask me, I don't think it was because he was worried about losing his job. Anyway, so there's a meme going around showing, showing him freaking out holding his phone, and it says fired, only, PFIRED. And what I immediately saw that was 40, and I just looked for an augury, and in that very meme, there was a picture of an octopus just above his head. It was a seafood restaurant. And I thought, to paraphrase something Thomas Sheridan said not too long ago, I bet this man's victims had more calamari in their veins than that entire restaurant. And so, anyway, that's, the Fortean stuff just writes itself. If you look for the auguries, they're going to be there. Shout out to Sheila Aliens and to Narwhal in Comicsgate. You guys are awesome, by the way, but thanks for giving me the idea to look into this AI art generator software. That's what I have with these lovely pictures for this stream, so you don't have to look at my mug the whole time. But it makes this art effortlessly, and I think that it should be used as a tool. I was fascinated. Narwhal has always been such a cutting edge figure in Comicsgate. His art is praised by some of the most effete members of our community, and for him not to be afraid to use that AI art generating software in his own work, just shows that he's still on that cutting edge, and he's just, using whatever tools that are available to convey his vision. Having said that, I am, a bit of an artist myself. I'm not anywhere near comic book quality art, but if you look at the link on my YouTube page in my about section, I've got some older art that I did. Some people, if you're devoutly religious, it might really offend you because I was going through a very Gnostic phase, and so I was getting very eclectic and syncretistic in my art, and so I was mixing all sorts of different religious tradition art forms together. And if you're the type of person that's going to chap your ass, you might not want to look at that. And actually, I'm in your camp now because I've since gotten a lot more traditional in my own views. But having said that, I just want to say I have a very stylistic approach, and I most of the stuff I did was freehand with a bamboo pen, using Creative Suite 3 in Photoshop when I was just feeling it out. And then, going through a lot of difficult parts of my life when I had my MacBook, sold out from under me, when I was forced to pawn it off way back in the day. um, I had to work with, my fiance's son's, old beat up computer that cost $300 at a pawn shop that he didn't want to use anymore. And, I downloaded GIMP for free on there, and I started using that with my bamboo pen. And, it was a challenge, but there were a lot of pieces that I made, on Creative Suite 3 and on GIMP. And I'll say that I'm better than someone who doesn't know how to draw, but I'm nowhere near the level of quality with that a comic book artist would require. But having said that, I was using mostly freehand with bamboo pen, and so I am open to using more tools that are available and have been available for a long time on creatives, the different Adobe Photoshop creative suites, as well as some of the other softwares that have popped up in the last 15 years or so. But I've written a 222 page unpublished novel. It's a dark fantasy horror novel, and it's called A Scroll of Light and Darkness. And I'm going to be splitting it up into two separate books as far as Indiegogo campaigns on Comicsgate. I have not gotten these started, so if you look for them, you're not going to find them yet. But I'm going to be splitting them up into two for the standard, 49, 50 page comic books. And the first one is going to be the light scroll, and the second one is going to be the dark scroll, which is the two sections that A Scroll of Light and Darkness are split up into. I'm also possibly going to be publishing the novel as well on Amazon. I don't know if I'm going to publish it ahead of publishing the comic books because it's going to spoil the story, but still, um, there are things that I've developed in my vision, since I finished writing the book. And I've also been, writing it and rewriting it and proofreading it and, just sort of lovingly manicuring it for the last 20 years or so. So this is a story that I've been writing quite a while. One of my short stories is published. It's called The Wanderer, and it's a 7 page short horror story, and it was published in the revival of the Triumvirate Trilogy, which was a zine from back in the day. And then David Oliver Kling, who's a friend of mine, um, decided that he wanted to resurrect his old zine because he had found that someone had cared enough about it that they were selling old copies of it on eBay. So he decided to relaunch it, and so he published my short story, and so it's called The Wanderer. If you look up the Triumvirate Trilogy, I'll leave a link to that in the notes. But so before we get to the next Fortean item, hit the like and subscribe button if you would. I have a very meager group of 16 apostles who have basically been subscribers to this channel since I've changed it 2 or 3 different times. I've dumped previous content before, but the next item that we're going to get into is something that a lot of people would find terrifying if they really thought of the implications of it. But I've been listening to a lot of the material from a writer and a philosopher and thinker. Um, his name is Dr. Jason Reza Georgiani, and I do not agree with his views on the transhumanist singularity and the direction that humanity should move in. Um, he is of the view that this is inevitable, that it almost as if it's a fixed point in space time. But having said that, I do find his material fascinating, even if I don't agree with his conclusions, and a lot of the facts that he's brought up about Persian history, and different things going on within um, some of the orders that sprung up around the Renaissance era. A lot of these things have just blown my mind and have connected a lot of the dots that I was wondering about. But anyway, for those of you who don't know what the transhumanist singularity is, the transhumanist singularity event is when, on the one hand, thinking self-aware computers, which may even contain things like biological CRISPR printed components, and then, on the other hand, technologically augmented humans, cyborgs, overlap to the point that they become indistinguishable. And of course, as I said before, Dr. Giorgiani believes that this is an unavoidable event, and he says that rather than go uh, to a traditionalist Luddite point of view, we should embrace it, and we should try to gain, we as in Westerners should try to gain a hegemony over this, because he says, as it is unavoidable if the West does not have the hegemony over this type of technology, singularity level technology, that you know that China would have control of it, and they would be far less humane in the way that they apply these technologies. Now, I don't believe that we would have to embrace a Luddite model to reject this. That's a bit of an either or sort of stance. You wouldn't have to become Amish to reject the monstrous implications of that type of technology. I believe that analog is the new magic. Essentially, if it came to that point, we would have to wage a real life Butlerian jihad against a very real enemy, which would not be human. And if it got to that point, I think the savior of humanity would be a massive solar flare that would take out the planetary power grid. But having said that, you don't have to be Luddite to dial that way back. As I said, analog is the new magic, and I think that a future society should put as much resources and research and engineering as they can into developing almost a type of real life steampunk technology, where we try to make analog technology as amenable and as high tech and as comparable to digital technology as we possibly can. And I think that that would be, a another alternative to dialing it back and becoming Amish, just to fight off the coming of some sort of monstrous hybridization of human and machine. And so, there's countless science fiction stories that have been written about this over the years. And, to think that we may be at the very threshold of this being a reality, it's terrifying. But anyway, like I said, I don't believe in I don't believe in a lot of the subcontext in Frank Herbert's Dune, but that aspect, as far as the Butlerian Jihad fighting that type of technology, that's something we're probably totally going to be facing soon. So, just for shits and giggles, I typed into the AI. I use the Imagine software for the AI art generator, but I typed in essentially intelligent life on Earth 1 million years after the transhumanist singularity event. And I just kept hitting generate every time it would make me a new picture. And, it would make me something different each time, but it was, it was all the same theme. And I made that into a slideshow. It's basically called Visions of a Future Earth, and that is in that is in the videos on this channel. So look for that one, Visions of a Future Earth. And these are all images that the Imagine AI software generated when I just typed that one line. You know, future life or intelligent life on Earth 1 million years after the transhumanist singularity event. And it's fascinating what the AI spit out. Essentially, the world is taken over again by a new type of megafauna, a type of land leviathan, a biomechanoid land leviathan, and there are still humanoid shapes and anything else that you can possibly imagine, with the merging of tech and biology. But it's pretty interesting. One of my friends had commented to me that the humanoid shapes in these images looked like the humans who had been exposed to the proto molecule in the Expanse series. And after I looked at it, I said, "Yeah, that is pretty creepy." Okay, what do the voices in my head say now? Let me tell you something. I shouldn't have taken my fucking retard meds before I started this show. They are muse inhibitors, but don't worry, I have a workaround. Anyway, huge mythology geek. The other movie or the other slideshows that I have in my on my channel here have to do with the AI generated images that I have based on characters in my book, which were reimagining of many of the Egyptian gods. And I call them by their Egyptian names rather than the Hellenized names that we know them by in the West. And so, Isis and Osiris are Aset and Asar. Set is Sutek, although he was also called Set. Horus is Harwer, and Thoth is Tut. And I have many others. I have a lot of the concept art that I did freehand that's on my art page. Again, link on my About section on the channel. And, these are all characters in the story within the story of my book, Scroll of Light and Darkness. And what I mean by a story within a story is that it's almost like a Russian novel, where it's like an onion. And the story within the story is a Gnostic scripture that a Gnostic cult has in their possession. And, the cult leader is sort of reading it to his disciples. And so, it has to do with Gnostic mythology and the antediluvian world before the flood and all kinds of crazy H.P. Lovecraft type horror stuff sprinkled in generously as well. And so, even the light scroll part of the Scroll of Light and Darkness is pretty dark in a lot of spaces, but it just has to do more with the Gnostic pantheon rather than the more Lovecraftian pantheon that I deal with in the Dark Scrolls section. But huge Jay Dyer fan. Jay Dyer talks a lot about intelligence agencies, and where he talks about cult leaders being assets of intelligence agencies in many cases, not in all cases, but intelligence agencies use cults for psyops all the time, and that's been well exposed over the years. And the whole Laurel Canyon psyop, played into that, creating the type of degenerate culture that would fall for a lot of these types of things. But anyway, this cult is pretty much the central theme in the first part of the book, and then the cult leader goes through a bit of a metamorphosis and joins sort of this elite supernatural intelligence agency called the Amygdala Abbey, and that's what we deal with in the second part of the book. And if anybody's asking when this stuff is going to get off the ground, well, that's partially up to many of you. As you can see, I've got a lot of things going on. I'm also my lady's caregiver, and so that's why a lot of these things have had a very slow going, because I've got all these ideas and I've got all these stories, but I also work full time and I'm a full time caregiver as well, and so that's why it's been slow going, and I only have 16 people on my channel, and I haven't been really doing anything to build everything up. I finally broke down and got a Twitter account, and I haven't used it since I opened it up. But if people start becoming interested in this material, and I start to gain a following, I'm definitely going to use that as a platform to get all of this started as far as a Comicsgate campaign goes. As I said before, I may just publish the book finally. It's been ready for years now. I finished writing it about 5-6 years ago before I moved back to my hometown here from Florida, and so it's definitely ready to go. One of the things that any of you who may read it in the near future will notice is that my politics have flipped. I like many of us, before the last 2 years, or maybe even before the last 6 or 7 years, when things like woke culture came about, and you know it gave rise to movements like Comicsgate and the Phantom Menace, and other things in the political sphere. Um, Before that, many of us were still following a lot of these old, outdated 20th century paradigms that were given to us by our boomer forebears. Um, and many of us were classical liberals, and we didn't really understand the nature of the woke animal, because none of us were alive 100 years ago and saw the violent terrorist side of the far left. They're only pacifists when we're dropping bombs on communists, but we're seeing a little bit of 1919 in 2020 and thereafter. So anyway, but the thing is, one thing that I would think would be totally ironic is if I didn't edit some of the context, is that I would show the lefties how to do it right, because even though my own politics are different than a lot of the views expressed by some of the characters in my book, I was primarily focused towards the story. And so if you use political views as something to develop character arcs, and if it serves the story rather than vice versa, then it's a utility, and I will use it as such. And it is a quite an elaborate mythology, and it it would be quite ironic if I could show the lefties how to do it right, instead of putting the cart in front of the horse, putting the political message before the content. We did vice versa, but showed them how to do it right, because I don't believe in any of the wackadoodle nonsense that this cult leader in this book, um, spouts off. I made some minor alterations here and there, a few years ago, but it's before I really, really saw the mask fall off the whole Laurel Canyon psyop, and I was completely disillusioned with everything. And I don't think I'm being too cryptic. I think everyone is sort of on the same page with me, if you've stayed with me this long. And um, I saw that mask slip, and I won't ever forget the face I saw under that mask. And I'm never going to go back to pretending that I didn't see what I saw. So, um, I used to love the Woodstock era music. I grew up listening to that. I'm a Gen Xer, and my generation, we didn't have the internet, and we had to deal with the boomers when they were young and stupid. So, but what really sealed the deal was when certain irrelevant crybabies tried to get Joe Rogan deplatformed, and it just totally showed the hypocrisy of how they flipped. But anyway, that's all I have for right now, and I just want to say bye, motherfuckers.